Have you ever spent a hot Saturday morning breaking your back, pulling out endless weeds, only to stuff them into a trash bag and throw them away? What if I told you that you were actually throwing away hundreds of dollars worth of premium, organic fertilizer? Yes, you heard that right. Today, we are going to completely flip everything you know about gardening on its head. I am going to share a closely guarded gardener's secret. We are going to take those annoying, free weeds and use them to literally double the yield of your tomatoes and cucumbers in just 14 days. It sounds like magic, but it is pure, undeniable plant science. By the end of this video, you will never look at a dandelion or a patch of nettles the same way again. In fact, you might actually start hoping that more weeds pop up in your yard. So, are you ready to stop wasting money at the garden centre and start growing the biggest, juiciest vegetables on your block? Let us dive right in. Before we get to the 14-day recipe, we need to understand a little bit of history and plant biology. For centuries, long before shiny plastic bottles of synthetic plant food lined the shelves of hardware stores, ancient farmers and indigenous growers relied entirely on the natural cycle of the earth. They understood something that modern convenience has made us forget. They knew that nature does not make mistakes. Plants that we categorize as weeds today are actually survival experts. They are pioneering plants that grow in poor soil because they have incredibly deep, powerful taproots. These roots dive far down into the earth, well past the reach of your shallow-rooted vegetables, and they mine for hidden minerals. They pull up iron, calcium, magnesium, and potassium, storing all that nutritional wealth right inside their green leaves. When we pull them up and throw them out, we are removing those precious minerals from our garden's ecosystem forever. But when we harness them, we create a superfood for our crops. Let us start by addressing the great gardening misunderstanding that has plagued backyard growers for decades. We have been conditioned by perfectly manicured lawn commercials to view every single weed as an invading enemy that must be destroyed at all costs. But think about this from a biological perspective for a moment. Why do weeds grow so fast? Why do they survive droughts when your prized tomatoes wilt? It is because they are botanical powerhouses. They are dynamic accumulators. This means their entire existence is dedicated to sucking up every ounce of nutrition from the surrounding dirt. While your pampered cucumbers are struggling to find nitrogen in the top few inches of topsoil, that stubborn weed nearby has sent a root down 2 feet to drink from a hidden mineral buffet. When you finally pull that weed out of the ground, you are holding a concentrated sponge of pure, unadulterated plant vitamins. Throwing it in the garbage is literally throwing away the exact food your vegetables are starving for. We are going to change that habit starting today. To really grasp how this works, let us look at a very specific shining example that is probably sitting in your front yard right now, the common dandelion. Most people hate them because they ruin a perfectly flat, green lawn. But did you know that the dandelion is one of the most nutrient-dense plants on the planet? Not just for humans, but for the soil. The dandelion root goes incredibly deep, and it specifically targets calcium and potassium. Now think about your tomato plants. What is the #1 problem tomato growers face in the middle of the summer? Blossom end rot. That ugly black spot on the bottom of the fruit. And what causes blossom end rot? A lack of calcium. Nature has provided the exact cure for your tomato problems, and it is growing for free right in the cracks of your sidewalk. By capturing the dandelion and turning it into a liquid feed, you're providing a massive immediate dose of calcium directly to the roots of your tomato plants, ensuring perfectly formed, heavy fruit. Now let us talk about another superstar weed that gets a terrible reputation, the stinging nettle. If you have ever brushed up against one with bare legs, you know exactly why people despise them. They leave a burning, itchy rash that lasts for hours. It is very easy to believe the myth that a plant that hurts you must be entirely useless or evil. But if you put on a thick pair of gardening gloves and harvest those nettles, you have just found the ultimate nitrogen bomb for your garden. Cucumbers, in particular, are absolute nitrogen hogs. They need massive amounts of energy to push out those long, thick green vines and giant leaves before they can even think about producing fruit. Stinging nettles contain a staggering amount of nitrogen, along with iron and magnesium. When you process nettles correctly, you disarm the sting and release all that explosive growth potential into a format that your cucumber roots will drink up like a protein shake. Your vines will literally surge across the trellis. So what is the significance of the 14-day timeline? Why not 5 days or 30 days? 14 days is the biological sweet spot for two crucial events. First, it is the exact amount of time it takes for your homemade weed tea to properly ferment and break down into a bioavailable state. We will get to the recipe in a moment, but understand that nutrients locked in leaves need time to be released by microbes. Second, once you apply this liquid gold to your plants, it takes about 2 weeks for the explosive growth cycle to fully manifest in the form of doubled blossoms and accelerated fruit set. If you apply it when the first flowers appear, exactly 14 days later, you will see a dramatic, undeniable increase in the physical size of the plant and the number of tiny green fruits clinging to the stems. It is a predictable, reliable biological clock that you can use to force your garden into overdrive. The first step in this process is changing how you harvest your weeds. We are no longer pulling them with anger. We are harvesting them with a very specific purpose. You want to walk through your garden or the edges of your property with a large bucket and a pair of sharp clippers or gloves. You are looking for healthy, vibrant, green leafy weeds. Dandelions, nettles, comfrey, chickweed and burdock are all fantastic choices. You want to grab as much of the green foliage as possible because the leaves are where the plant has stored the majority of the sun's energy and the soil's minerals. Imagine you are at a salad bar, but you are making a salad for your tomatoes. Grab huge handfuls. The more variety you have in your bucket, the broader the spectrum of nutrients your final fertilizer will contain. Different weeds pull up different trace minerals, so a mixed bucket creates a highly balanced, full-spectrum plant food. However, there is one absolutely crucial rule you must follow during the harvesting phase, or you will create a nightmare for yourself next season. You must never, under any circumstances, use weeds that have already gone to seed. Let me repeat that because it is vital. Do not use the fluffy white dandelion heads or any weed that has tiny seeds clinging to its stems. If you put seeds into your fertilizer mix, they will survive the brewing process. Then, when you lovingly pour your homemade plant food around your delicate cucumbers, you will accidentally be planting thousands of brand new weeds directly into your fertile vegetable beds. You are trying to feed your vegetables, not start a weed farm. So, stick strictly to the green leaves, the stems and the roots if you dig them up. If you see a weed that is flowering or seeding, either cut the seed head off and throw it in the actual trash, or just skip that plant entirely. Once you have your bucket packed with fresh, green weeds, it is time for the preparation phase. To make the magical weed tea, you need to help the decomposition process along. Do not just throw whole giant weeds into the water. Take a pair of garden shears, or even a lawnmower if you have a massive pile, and chop the weeds up into smaller pieces. The smaller the pieces, the more surface area you expose. The more surface area exposed, the faster the water and the microscopic bacteria can get to work breaking down the tough cellulose plant cell walls to extract the minerals inside. Think of it like making a cup of tea for yourself. A finely ground tea bag releases its flavour and colour into hot water almost instantly, whereas a whole, uncrushed leaf takes much longer. By chopping your weeds down to roughly 1-inch pieces, you are guaranteeing a potent, highly concentrated fertilizer brew. Now we move on to the water-to-weed ratio, which is the foundation of the 14-day fertilizer. Take a 5-gallon bucket, or a larger trash can if you are running a big garden, and pack it about halfway to 2/3 full with your chopped green weed matter. Now you need to top it off with water, but here is a pro tip. Do not use water straight from the garden hose if your city treats it with high levels of chlorine. Chlorine is designed to kill bacteria, but we actually need good bacteria to break down our weeds. If you can, use captured rainwater from a barrel. If you must use tap water, fill a bucket and let it sit out in the sun for 24 hours so the chlorine can evaporate before you add it to your weeds. Fill the bucket until the weeds are completely submerged. Place a lid on top, but do not seal it completely tight. As the plants break down, they will release natural gases, and you need to leave a small crack so those gases can safely escape without popping the lid off. Let us talk about the fascinating fermentation process that happens once you put that lid on. Over the next week to 10 days, your bucket will transform into a microscopic battlefield. Anaerobic bacteria will begin to feast on the green plant matter. As they digest the leaves and stems, they physically break apart the cellular structure of the weeds. This action unlocks all that trapped potassium, nitrogen, calcium and phosphorus, releasing it directly into the surrounding water. The water will slowly start to change colour, turning from clear to a murky green, and eventually to a dark, rich brown. It is essentially a cold composting method. Instead of waiting 6 months for a traditional compost pile to break down into soil, you are using water as a solvent to extract the purest liquid nutrients in a fraction of the time. You are brewing an energy drink for your garden. During this brewing phase, you cannot just set it and forget it. You need to actively participate in the process by stirring the pot. Every 2 to 3 days, you need to take the lid off and give the mixture a really vigorous stir with a long stick or an old shovel handle. This step is incredibly important because it introduces fresh oxygen into the water. Stirring prevents the mixture from becoming completely stagnant and encourages the growth of beneficial aerobic bacteria, which speeds up the decomposition and creates a healthier final product. When you stir it, you will notice bubbles rising to the surface. That is the trapped gas escaping, and it is a visual confirmation that the biological breakdown is happening exactly as it should. Just give it a good swirl for about 60 seconds, push any floating weeds back under the surface of the water, and put the lid back on. Now we have to address the elephant in the room, the smell. I am not going to lie to you. As this concoction ferments, it is going to smell bad. Really bad. Depending on the type of weeds you used, it might smell like a swamp, an old barn, or worse. But do not panic and do not throw it away. I need you to completely dispel the myth that good, effective plant food must smell like a bouquet of roses. In organic gardening, a strong, funky smell is often the scent of savings and success. That intense odour is simply the sulphur and nitrogen compounds breaking down and becoming chemically available for your plants. It means the process is working perfectly. However, because of the smell, I highly recommend keeping your brewing bucket at the far back corner of your yard, far away from your patio, your open windows, and definitely far away from your neighbour's fence line. Knowing exactly when your weed tea is ready for action is crucial. If you try to use it too early, it will just be wet leaves, and your plants will not get the nutrient spike they need. Generally, for the 14-day growth method we are aiming for, you want to let the tea brew for about 10 to 14 days in warm summer weather. You will know it is ready by looking at it, and unfortunately, by smelling it. The liquid will have turned a very dark, opaque brown or deep, swampy green. Most of the original plant matter will have broken down into a soft, mushy sludge at the bottom of the bucket. The smell will be pungent and earthy. When it reaches this stage, you have successfully created a liquid fertilizer that rivals anything you could buy in a premium organic garden centre. It is pure, concentrated plant vitality, ready to be deployed. This next step is where many beginners make a fatal mistake, so please listen closely. You have created a highly concentrated fertilizer. If you take this dark, foul-smelling liquid and pour it directly onto the roots of your tomatoes or cucumbers, you will experience fertilizer burn. The nitrogen load is so high that it will literally scorch the roots and turn the leaves yellow, potentially killing the plant. You must dilute it. The golden rule for weed tea is a 1:10 ratio. You take 1 part of your concentrated weed tea and mix it with 10 parts of fresh, clean water. For example, use 1 cup of the tea in a large watering can filled with fresh water. The final mixture should look like weak iced tea. It should be a light translucent brown. In this diluted state, it is perfectly safe, incredibly gentle, and ready for immediate absorption by the fine root hairs of your vegetables. Let us talk specifically about the application on your tomato plants. Tomatoes are what we call heavy feeders. As soon as they start setting those little yellow flowers, their demand for potassium skyrockets. Potassium is what regulates water movement in the plant and builds plump, heavy, crack-resistant fruit. When you water your tomatoes with this diluted weed tea, you want to pour it directly at the base of the main stem, right onto the soil. Do not spray it on the leaves. Tomato leaves hate being wet, and spraying them can invite fungal diseases like early blight. By pouring the tea right onto the root zone, the liquid soaks in instantly. The plant does not have to wait for solid fertilizer to dissolve. The liquid nutrients are pulled straight up the stem and delivered directly to the developing tomatoes within hours of application. The application for cucumbers yields even more dramatic visual results. Cucumbers are fast, aggressive growers, and their primary fuel is nitrogen. When a cucumber plant starts throwing out those yellow blossoms, it needs an enormous amount of energy to sustain the vines while simultaneously swelling the fruit. The diluted nettle or dandelion tea provides a massive nitrogen kick. Apply it around the base of the cucumber mounds, soaking the soil thoroughly. Because cucumbers have shallow, wide-spreading roots, the liquid application is perfect. Within a few days of the first application, you will notice the leaves turning a deeper, richer shade of dark green. The vines will look thicker and sturdier. And more importantly, you will see a massive increase in the number of female flowers, which are the ones that actually turn into the crunchy cucumbers you want to harvest. Now we arrive at the core strategy of the 14-day magic window. This is how you achieve the doubled harvest. You do not just apply this tea once and walk away. You need to create a consistent biological rhythm. Apply your diluted weed tea the moment you see the first flowers appear on your plants. Then mark your calendar and apply it exactly 14 days later, and then 14 days after that. This 2-week cycle is critical because liquid fertilizers wash through the soil faster than solid granules. By applying it every 14 days, you're ensuring that right as the plant exhausts the first wave of nutrients to build the fruit, a fresh wave of liquid energy arrives to sustain the growth. It completely prevents the midsummer slump where plants usually stop producing. You are keeping the foot on the gas pedal for the entire growing season. There is a massive hidden secondary benefit to this method that goes beyond simply feeding the plant. You are profoundly improving your soil microbiome. When you pour that diluted weed tea into the dirt, you are not just delivering minerals. You're delivering millions of beneficial microbes and bacteria that multiplied in your brewing bucket. The soil is not just dead dirt, it is a living, breathing ecosystem. Earthworms, beneficial fungi, and microscopic life forms go absolutely crazy for this organic liquid. They consume it, multiply, and in turn create an incredibly rich, airy, living soil structure. Over time, this living soil holds moisture better during droughts and naturally protects your plant roots from diseases. You are creating an underground fortress of health that synthetic chemical fertilizers actually destroy. Healthy soil always equals massive, healthy yields. Let us take a moment to look at the financial reality of this strategy. Go to any high-end garden centre and look at the price of concentrated organic, liquid kelp or fish, emulsion fertilizers. You are easily spending $20 to $30 for a single small bottle. If you have a large garden, you could spend hundreds of dollars a season just trying to keep your heavy feeders happy. Now look out at your driveway, your fence line, or your garden pathways. That is free food. You are taking a waste product that costs you $0, adding free water, and generating gallons and gallons of premium feed. You are closing the loop on your property, recycling nutrients that were already there, and turning a frustrating chore into a money-saving enterprise. Gardening should not drain your wallet. Nature provides everything you need if you know how to process it. Furthermore, think about the ultimate win-win situation you have just created regarding garden maintenance. Weed control is usually the most hated chore for any backyard gardener. It feels tedious and unrewarding, But by using this 14-day fertilizer method, you completely change your psychological approach to weeding. You are no longer performing a chore. You are foraging for valuable resources because you need a constant supply of green matter to keep your tea brewing every 2 weeks. You will find yourself proactively pulling weeds long before they have a chance to go to seed and spread. You naturally keep your garden beds much cleaner and tidier because you view the weeds as an asset rather than an eyesore. Your yard stays immaculate and your tomatoes grow to the size of softballs. It is the smartest, most efficient way to manage a piece of land. Finally, let us cover some quick troubleshooting so you can use this method with total confidence. What if your bucket gets slimy or attracts too many mosquitoes? Simply add a handful of dry brown leaves or straw to the bucket. Stir it more frequently to increase oxygen and make sure the lid is covering the top, enough to keep bugs out. What if you are not sure if a weed is safe to use? Stick to the common, easily identifiable ones like dandelions, stinging nettles, comfrey and clover. Avoid absolutely anything that looks like poison ivy, poison oak, or plants you know to be highly toxic. Keep the process simple, respect the 1:10 dilution ratio, and stay consistent with the 14-day feeding schedule. If you follow these basic rules, the results will absolutely shock you, and you will become a believer in the power of free weeds. So, there you have it, the ultimate gardener's secret revealed. We took the most hated plants in the yard, the stubborn weeds, and transformed them into a nutrient-packed liquid gold that forces your tomatoes and cucumbers into overdrive. By simply harvesting the right green leaves, brewing them in water, and applying that diluted magic every 14 days, you unlock the deep soil minerals that your heavy-feeding vegetables desperately need. It is free, it is completely organic, and the results are truly staggering. You are saving money cleaning up your yard and building incredibly healthy soil all at the same time. Nature is brilliant, and now you know how to hack the system. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this secret helpful, please hit that subscribe button, leave a big thumbs up, and share this with a fellow gardener. Now, I want to hear from you. Head down to the comments and tell me, what is the single most annoying, stubborn weed you have to deal with in your garden right now? Let us discuss how to turn it into fertilizer.